Sarah lived a quiet life in a small town. She was not rich. She did not have fancy clothes or big dreams, but she had something special, a kind heart. Every morning, Sarah walked to the little bakery on the corner to buy bread. On her way, she would stop to help an old woman cross the street or give a coin to the man who played the guitar in the park. The people in the town knew her. They always smiled when they saw her. Sarah worked in a small flower shop. She loved flowers because to her, they were a sign of hope. She believed even the smallest flower could brighten someone's day. She would often give away flowers for free to people who looked sad. But behind Sarah's warm smile, there was a sadness she never spoke about. One night, many years ago, something happened that stayed in her heart. It was a cold, rainy night. The streets were almost empty. Sarah was walking home after work, holding her umbrella tightly as the wind pushed against her. The rain was falling hard, and the sky was dark. As she walked past the old bus stop, she saw something that made her stop. Under the small roof of the bus stop sat a young boy. He looked no older than 10. His clothes were thin and wet, his hair was messy, and his small hands were shaking from the cold. His eyes were red, as if he had been crying for a long time. Sarah felt her heart ache. She could not just walk away. She slowly walked up to the boy. "Hi, are you okay?" she asked softly. The boy looked up, but he did not answer. His lips were blue from the cold, and his small body was trembling. Without thinking, Sarah took off her scarf and wrapped it around the boy. "Here, this will help keep you warm," she said, smiling gently. She sat down next to him, holding the umbrella over both of them. "Are you waiting for someone?" she asked. The boy shook his head slowly. A tear rolled down his cheek. Sarah's heart broke a little more. "Are you hungry?" she asked. Again, the boy just nodded. Sarah reached into her bag and pulled out the sandwich she had planned to eat for dinner. She handed it to the boy. "Here, you can have this," she said kindly. The boy took the sandwich with small, shaking hands. He ate quickly, as if he hadn't eaten in days. Sarah watched quietly, feeling tears fill her own eyes. She wondered, where were his parents? Why was he alone on such a cold night? When the boy finished eating, Sarah wrapped her arms around him gently. She didn't know what else to do, but she wanted him to feel safe, even if just for a moment. They sat there together for a long time, listening to the sound of the rain. Sarah told him stories about the stars and the moon, trying to make him smile. Slowly, the boy closed his eyes and leaned against her, falling asleep. When morning came, Sarah woke up to find the boy was gone. She looked around, but there was no sign of him. It was as if he had disappeared into the morning light. She asked people nearby if they had seen where the boy went, but no one knew. Sarah felt a deep sadness in her chest. She had wanted to help him more. She had wanted to make sure he was safe. But now he was gone, and she didn't even know his name. Still, she hoped that somewhere, somehow, the boy would remember that night. She hoped he would remember that someone cared. Years passed, but Sarah never forgot the boy at the bus stop. Sometimes, when she walked by that same place, she would stop and look around, wondering if she would ever see him again. But she never did. She went on living her simple life, helping others, giving kindness wherever she could. But in her heart, she always kept the memory of that rainy night, the night she gave warmth and love to a broken child who needed it most. The soft knock on Sarah's door echoed in her small home. She wasn't expecting anyone. It was a quiet evening. Sarah had just finished her tea and was about to sit by the window, like she always did, to watch the sunset. But the sound at the door stopped her. She stood up slowly, feeling a little nervous. When she opened the door, her breath caught in her throat. A tall man stood there. He wore a black coat, his dark hair neatly brushed, his face calm, but serious. There was something about his eyes, something that made Sarah's heart beat faster. For a moment, they just looked at each other. Then the man spoke. "You don't remember me, do you?" His voice was deep, but soft. Sarah's mind raced. Who was this man? Had she seen him before? Was he from the town? I'm sorry," Sarah said quietly. "Do I know you?" The man gave a small, sad smile. "Not yet, but you will." He looked down, as if unsure whether to say more. Then he looked up again. Can I come in? Please. Sarah hesitated. She didn't usually invite strangers into her home, but something in his voice, something in his eyes, made her step aside. All right, come in. Inside, Sarah poured 2 cups of tea and sat across from the man. They sat in silence for a moment. She waited, watching him carefully. Finally, the man spoke again. My name is Daniel. Sarah nodded slowly. She still didn't recognize the name. I grew up far from here, Daniel continued, his fingers wrapped around the warm teacup. It was not a happy childhood. I was poor, hungry, always running, always hiding. Sarah felt a small chill run down her back. His words sounded familiar, but she didn't know why. One night, Daniel said softly, when I was just a child, I found myself in this very town, alone, cold, sitting at a bus stop, crying. Sarah's eyes widened. She felt her heart skip a beat. Daniel's eyes met hers. Yes, he said, as if reading her thoughts. That was me. Sarah covered her mouth with her hand. Oh my God, she whispered. Daniel gave a small nod. I remember you. A young woman with a warm smile, who sat with me in the rain. You gave me food. You wrapped me in your scarf. You told me stories when no one else cared. Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. I always wondered what happened to you, she said softly. I looked for you the next morning, but you were gone. Daniel gave a bitter laugh. I left before the sun came up. I was scared. I thought if I stayed too long, you would send me away or call the police. So I ran. Sarah's chest tightened. She had never wanted to hurt him. She had only wanted to help. I thought about you many times, Daniel continued, his voice quieter now. For years, I wondered why you helped me, why a stranger would care about a boy no one else wanted. Sarah wiped a tear from her cheek. I just couldn't leave you alone, she whispered. There was a long silence. Then Daniel leaned forward. But you see, he said slowly, my life after that night, it didn't get better. It got worse. Sarah's heart sank. I went back to the streets, Daniel said. I fell into bad crowds. I was angry. Angry at the world. Angry at the people who walked past me every day. But most of all, I was angry at you. Sarah's eyes widened in shock. At me, she whispered. Why? Daniel's eyes burned with emotion. Because you showed me kindness for one night, and then you were gone. I blamed you. I told myself it was your fault I had hope, only to lose it again. Sarah felt her chest tighten painfully. I never meant to leave you, she said softly. I didn't know where you went. I thought you were safe. Daniel shook his head. For years, I carried that anger. I told myself I didn't need anyone. But deep down, I kept asking, why did you help me? Sarah reached across the table and gently placed her hand over his. Because no one should have to feel alone, she said, her voice trembling. Not you, not anyone. Daniel looked down at her hand, his jaw tight. I searched for you, he whispered. When I got older, when I got stronger, I searched. I wanted to find the woman who sat with me in the rain. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. And now you're here, she said softly, after all these years. Daniel took a deep breath. Yes, but I didn't come here just to say thank you. Sarah's heart pounded. Then why? Why are you here? She asked quietly. Daniel looked up, his eyes dark and serious. I'm here, he said slowly, because I have something to tell you. Something that will change everything you thought you knew about that night. Sarah's hands trembled slightly as she held her teacup. Across from her, Daniel sat still, his eyes fixed on her. I have something to tell you, Daniel repeated softly. Something you never knew about that night. Sarah felt her heart race. She had waited so many years, wondering what happened to the small boy she once helped. And now here he was, sitting in her home, with a mysterious truth she wasn't sure she was ready to hear. All right, Sarah whispered, her voice shaky. Tell me. Daniel took a deep breath. After that night, he began. I thought about you for a long time. I thought about the woman who shared her food, who wrapped me in her scarf, who stayed beside me even when she didn't have to. Sarah felt a small warmth in her chest, remembering that rainy night. But, Daniel continued, life didn't get better. In fact, it became harder. Much harder. Sarah's brow furrowed with worry. I wandered from town to town, Daniel said. I slept on streets, in abandoned buildings. I begged for food. I fought to survive. I became angry, at the world, at the people who ignored me, and yes, even at you. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. At me, she whispered. Daniel nodded. I know it wasn't fair, he said softly. You were the only person who showed me kindness. But when you were gone, I felt even more alone. I told myself, why did she help me if she wasn't going to stay? Sarah covered her mouth with her hand. I didn't know, she whispered. I wanted to help more. I looked for you the next day. You were gone. Daniel's eyes softened for a moment. I know that now, he said quietly. But back then, I was just a scared boy who didn't understand why good things never lasted. The room fell silent for a moment. Sarah looked down at her hands, feeling guilt rise in her chest. I'm so sorry, Daniel, she whispered. I wish I had found you. I wish I had done more. Daniel gave a small, sad smile. But here's the part you don't know, he said, leaning forward. Sarah looked up confused. That night, Daniel said slowly, someone else saw us. Sarah's eyebrows raised. A man, Daniel continued. A man who watched from the shadows. I didn't notice him back then, but later, I learned who he was. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. Who was he? She asked quietly. Daniel's jaw tightened. He was a man from a dangerous group, people who hurt children like me, people who use lost kids for their own gain. Sarah's eyes widened in horror. You mean, they were after you? Daniel nodded. I had run away from them. I thought I was safe that night at the bus stop. But they found me again, because of that man, and when they caught me, they made my life even worse. Sarah's chest tightened painfully. Oh, Daniel, she whispered, tears filling her eyes. Daniel took a shaky breath, his voice trembling for the first time. I was trapped with them for years. I was forced to do terrible things, things I can't even speak about. Sarah reached out and gently touched his hand. You don't have to tell me, she said softly. I'm so sorry you went through that. Daniel looked at her, his eyes dark and filled with pain. But that's not all, he said quietly. I want you to understand something, Sarah. Sarah waited, holding her breath. I survived because of you. Sarah blinked in surprise. What do you mean? Daniel gave a small, bittersweet smile. Even when I was trapped, even when I was forced into terrible places, I remembered you. I remembered that one night when someone cared, and that memory kept me alive. Sarah felt her tears fall freely now. I don't know what to say, she whispered. You don't have to say anything, Daniel said softly. I just want you to know that your kindness saved me, even if you didn't know it. The two sat quietly, the weight of the past heavy between them. Sarah wiped her eyes and took a deep breath. So why are you here now? She asked gently. Why come after all these years? Daniel's face grew serious again. Because, he said slowly, I found something. Something about you. Sarah's eyes widened slightly. About me? Daniel nodded. I found out. You are in danger. Sarah's heart skipped a beat. Danger? She whispered. What do you mean? Daniel leaned closer, his voice low. The people who hurt me, they're still out there. And they know about you now. They know you helped me. And they are not happy about it. Sarah sat frozen in her chair. The room felt colder now, even though the heater was on. Across from her, Daniel watched her carefully, his dark eyes serious. Danger, Sarah whispered again, her hands shaking slightly. But why? Why would they care about me? Daniel leaned forward, his voice low and firm. Because you were the only person who showed me kindness, he said, and they know that. They see you as a threat. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest. I don't understand, she said softly. I'm just a flower shop worker. I don't have anything they want. Daniel shook his head slowly. It's not about money or power, he said. It's about control. They control the people they hurt, And anyone who gives those people hope becomes a problem. Sarah's hands covered her mouth. All I did was help a child, she whispered. Just for one night? Daniel gave a small, bitter smile. Sometimes, one small act of kindness can ripple across years, he said softly. Sometimes, it changes more than you know. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Outside the window, the sky was dark. The streetlights flickered. Sarah felt a deep fear settle in her chest. She had lived such a quiet life. She had never been part of anything dangerous. She had never thought someone might want to hurt her. And yet, here was Daniel, sitting across from her, a man she once knew as a small broken boy, telling her she was now in danger. Finally, Sarah took a deep breath. "What should I do?" she asked quietly. "What can I do?" Daniel looked at her with a mix of sadness and determination. "You trust me," he said softly, "and you listen carefully." Sarah nodded slowly. "Okay," she whispered, "I trust you." Daniel stood up and walked to the window, peeking outside. "I've been watching them," he said. "I know how they move, how they think. They don't like loose ends, Sarah. And after all these years, I became a loose end. And now, so have you." Sarah stood up too, her legs shaking slightly. "I don't want trouble," she said softly. "I just want a quiet life." Daniel turned to her, his eyes gentle now. "I know," he said. "That's why I'm here. I want to keep you safe." Sarah looked at him, her eyes filling with tears. "I never forgot you, Daniel," she whispered. "I always hoped you were okay." Daniel gave a small, sad smile. "I'm okay now," he said softly, "but we have to move quickly." Suddenly, a loud noise made them both jump. Bandy, bang. Someone was knocking, no pounding, at the door. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. Daniel's eyes flashed with alarm. "Stay quiet," he whispered sharply. He moved quickly to turn off the lights. The room fell into darkness. Sarah's heart was racing so fast, she thought it might break. She could hear the sound of heavy footsteps outside. A shadow moved past the window. Daniel carefully guided her to the back door. "We have to leave," he whispered. "Now." Sarah's hands shook as she picked up her coat. "Where will we go?" she whispered. Daniel glanced at her, his jaw tight. "Somewhere safe," he said firmly. "I have a place outside of town. They don't know about it." Sarah nodded, too scared to speak. She followed Daniel out the back, her heart pounding, her mind racing. She had never imagined her life would turn into something like this. She had never imagined she would be running from danger. And yet, here she was, in the dark, holding her breath, following a man she had once saved when he was just a child. As they moved through the shadows, Sarah thought about all the small moments in life she had once taken for granted. The quiet mornings in her flower shop, the peaceful walks through the town, the simple smiles from people she helped. All of it now felt like a world far away. When they reached Daniel's car, he opened the door quickly. "Get in," he said. Sarah slipped inside, her hands shaking. Daniel got into the driver's seat and started the engine. As they drove away, Sarah looked back at her small house, her heart heavy. "Will I ever go back?" she whispered. Daniel glanced at her. "I don't know," he said quietly. "But right now, we need to stay alive." The car sped through the empty streets. Sarah looked over at Daniel. "I don't understand," she said softly. "Why come back now? Why not just stay away and let me live in peace?" Daniel's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Because I owe you," he said simply. "You saved me when no one else did. I can't let them hurt you because of me." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "You don't owe me anything," she whispered. "I was just doing what anyone would do." Daniel gave a sad, knowing smile. "No, Sarah," he said softly. "Not everyone would do what you did." The car sped down the dark country roads, the headlights cutting through the night. Sarah sat quietly in the passenger seat, her hands clenched tightly in her lap. She watched the trees rush by, the moonlight casting strange shadows. Her heart was still pounding. She couldn't believe how her peaceful life had turned upside down in just one evening. Beside her, Daniel kept his eyes on the road, his jaw tight, his hands gripping the wheel. Neither of them spoke for a long time. Finally, Sarah whispered, "Where are we going?" Daniel glanced at her quickly before looking back at the road. "I have a safe house," he said softly. "It's an old cabin outside of town. No one knows about it. We can stay there till I figure out what they're planning." Sarah swallowed hard. "And then what?" she asked quietly. Daniel's lips pressed into a thin line. "Then," he said, "we fight back." They reached the cabin an hour later. It was small, hidden among the trees, almost invisible in the darkness. Daniel parked the car behind it and quickly helped Sarah out. Inside, the cabin smelled of old wood and dust. There was a small fireplace, a worn sofa, and a single lamp that cast a soft yellow glow. Sarah sat on the sofa, feeling the exhaustion hit her all at once. Daniel locked the doors and checked the windows. Only when he was sure they were safe did he sit down across from her. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Sarah looked at him, her eyes wide and full of questions. "Daniel," she whispered, "please tell me the truth. Who are these people? Why are they after you and me?" Daniel took a deep breath, running a hand through his dark hair. "They're part of a hidden group," he began slowly. "A group that controls people in the shadows. They take children, they train them, they break them. I was one of those children." Sarah's heart ached. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. Daniel shook his head. "I escaped, but only barely. And after I grew up, I started hunting them. I wanted to stop them. But they're powerful, Sarah. More powerful than you can imagine." Sarah's voice trembled. "And now they know about me." Daniel nodded. "They know you helped me that night, all those years ago, and they believe you might know something, even if you don't." Sarah felt a chill run through her. "I don't know anything," she whispered. "I know," Daniel said softly. "But they don't care. They just want to erase anything that connects to me. That includes you." The cabin fell silent again. Sarah wrapped her arms around herself, feeling small and scared. "I'm just an ordinary woman," she said quietly. "I don't know how to fight. I don't know how to run from people like this." Daniel's eyes softened. "You don't have to fight alone," he said gently. "I'm here, and I know how they work. I'll protect you." Sarah looked at him with tear-filled eyes. "Why are you risking everything for me, Daniel?" she whispered. "Why not just hide by yourself?" Daniel gave a small, sad smile. "Because you're the reason I survived," he said softly. "When I was a boy, I believed the whole world was cruel. But then you sat with me in the rain. You gave me food. You gave me warmth. You showed me there was still good in the world." Sarah wiped at her eyes, overwhelmed by emotion. Suddenly, a sharp noise outside made both of them freeze. Crunch. The sound of a footstep on dry leaves. Daniel was on his feet in an instant, moving silently to the window. He peeked through the curtains, his eyes sharp. Sarah held her breath, her heart racing. Daniel motioned for her to stay low. He reached for something under the old cabinet, a hidden gun. Sarah's eyes widened in shock. "I hoped we'd have more time," Daniel whispered, his voice tense. "But they found us." Sarah's whole body trembled. "What do we do?" she whispered. Daniel's eyes flicked to her. "We stay calm," he said firmly. "We wait, we listen, and if they break in, we run." Sarah felt tears welling up again, but she forced herself to nod. She couldn't fall apart now. Not when danger was right outside. The next few minutes stretched like hours. Sarah could hear voices outside, soft, low, moving carefully. She could hear more footsteps, closer now. Daniel's jaw tightened. He checked the window again. Then he whispered, "There's a back door. When I tell you, you run. Don't stop. Don't look back." Sarah shook her head. "I can't leave you here," she whispered. Daniel gave her a small, fierce look. "You have to," he said. "I'll hold them off. You need to survive, Sarah. You're the one good thing I have left in this world." Sarah's heart pounded so loudly she could hear it in her ears. She crouched low behind the sofa, her eyes wide, her hands shaking. Across the room, Daniel moved like a shadow, silent, controlled, his hand gripping the small gun tightly. Outside, the soft sounds of footsteps circled the cabin. Branches cracked. Low voices murmured. They were surrounded. Daniel knelt beside Sarah. "When I say go," he whispered softly, "you run to the back door. Don't stop. Don't wait for me." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "I can't leave you," she whispered. Daniel gave a small, fierce smile. "You have to," he said. "You saved me once. Let me protect you now." Suddenly, bang! The front door slammed open. Masked men rushed inside, their heavy boots thudding on the old wooden floor. Daniel stood up fast, raising the gun. "Run," he shouted. Sarah gasped and scrambled toward the back door. Her hands fumbled at the old lock. Her breath came in short, panicked gasps. Behind her, she heard loud shouts, the crack of a gun, the sound of bodies struggling. Her heart screamed for her to turn back, but Daniel's voice echoed in her mind. "Don't stop. Don't wait for me." The back door burst open, and Sarah ran into the cold night. The trees loomed around her, dark and twisting. The ground was rough, branches snagged at her clothes. She ran, tears streaming down her face, her lungs burning. Behind her, the sounds of the fight grew louder. Then suddenly, a terrible silence. Sarah stumbled, falling to her knees. "No, Daniel?" she gasped. For a long moment, she knelt there in the dark, shaking, sobbing, not knowing what to do. She wanted to go back. She wanted to help. But she also knew Daniel had given her this chance, a chance to survive. Slowly, Sarah forced herself to stand. "I have to keep going," she whispered to herself. "For Daniel. For both of us." She moved deeper into the woods, her steps unsteady, her breath ragged. Somewhere behind her, she thought she heard shouting again, men searching, calling to each other. She hid behind a tree, pressing a hand over her mouth to keep herself quiet. Her mind raced. Where do I go? What do I do? She had no car, no phone, no plan. She was just an ordinary woman, caught in something far bigger than herself. Suddenly, a hand touched her shoulder. Sarah nearly screamed, but a familiar voice whispered, "It's me." She turned and saw Daniel, his face pale, a cut bleeding on his forehead. "Daniel," she gasped, throwing her arms around him. He hugged her tightly for a moment, then pulled back. "We don't have much time," he said urgently. "They're still out there." Sarah stared at him, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I thought you were," she began, but couldn't finish the sentence. Daniel gave a tired, grim smile. "I'm not done yet," he said softly. "Come on." They moved carefully through the trees, sticking to the shadows. Daniel led the way, his steps quick but silent. Sarah followed closely, her heart still pounding. At one point, they heard voices nearby, angry, searching. Daniel pulled Sarah down behind a fallen log. They lay there, holding their breath, as two men passed by just a few feet away. Sarah squeezed her eyes shut, her hands trembling. She had never been so afraid in her life. When the danger passed, Daniel helped her up again. "There's an old road not far from here," he whispered. "If we reach it, we can try to find help." Sarah nodded weakly, too exhausted to speak. Step by step, they made their way through the dark woods. Finally, they reached the edge of the trees. Beyond, Sarah saw an empty country road stretching into the night. "We made it," she whispered, a tiny flicker of hope in her chest. But just as they stepped onto the road, headlights. A black SUV roared around the corner, its tires kicking up gravel. Daniel grabbed Sarah's hand and yanked her back into the shadows. The car skidded to a stop, and more masked men jumped out. "They're everywhere," Daniel muttered, his face tight with worry. Sarah's heart sank. "What do we do now?" she whispered desperately. Daniel looked at her, his eyes burning with determination. "We keep running," he said simply. "We stay alive." Sarah took a deep, shaky breath. "Okay," she whispered. "I'm with you." Months later, Sarah's life continued, but something interesting began to happen. Letters. Small, anonymous letters would arrive every few weeks. Sometimes they contained just a simple note. "The stars look beautiful tonight." Or, Found a quiet beach today. Thought of you. Sometimes they held pressed flowers or a tiny sketch of a place far away. Sarah never knew exactly where they came from, but she always smiled when she opened them, because she knew. She never told anyone about the letters. They were her quiet treasure, her private proof that somewhere, Daniel was alive and free. One last mystery. One winter night, as Sarah closed her shop, she noticed something on the door, a small paper star, carefully folded, hanging from a piece of string. She took it down gently, smiling. Inside, written in small, careful letters, was a single line. "When the time is right, I'll return." Sarah pressed the star to her chest, her eyes shining. She didn't know when or how, but deep inside, she believed they would meet again. Final reflections. Sarah's life went on. She helped her town, loved her neighbors, lived quietly but deeply. But inside, she always carried the memory of a rainy night long ago, when she offered a blanket to a cold, lonely boy, and how that small act of kindness had shaped her entire life. She had learned something important, that even when you think you are small, you can change someone's world, and that even when life seems dark, light can find its way back to you.